Good morning, everybody. This is Monday, October 8th, 2018. It's 9 o'clock. Santa Rosa County Commission meeting will begin. I'm going to ask this morning that Commissioner Salter lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after Commissioner Rob Williamson leads us in a prayer. Please rise.
Good morning. Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time to come together and to do the county's business. We appreciate the opportunity that you've given each one of us to serve, and we pray that we will do so with humility and in such a way that be pleasing to you. We pray that folks along the panhandle of Florida and the rest of the state will prepare for the upcoming hurricane that's on the way. We know that you will protect us and that everything happens according to your will. Pray this in your name. Amen.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to start out this morning. Make sure everybody's cell phones are please in a quiet mode. Just some housekeeping. If you do speak this morning, we need a speaker's card and announce your name and address, please, for the record. Before we get into today's regular scheduled meeting, a couple of notes that we need to take care of. Of course, everybody's aware now of possible hurricane looming in the Gulf of Mexico. I got to read this. I want to read this declaration of state of emergency pursuant to Santa Rosa County Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan and Chapter 252 Florida statutes, and based on the following findings, that Santa Rosa County Commission hereby declares a state of emergency. 1. A meeting of the Board of County Commissioners will be conducted to address the exigencies of hurricane conditions in the county in accordance with the Santa Rosa County CMP. The board has found and continued threat to the county warrants this declaration. As of item 2, as of 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time, this date, a state of emergency is hereby declared in for Santa Rosa County, Florida, and will remain in effect until the county is no longer threatened and or recovered from its impact. Item 3, all county officials are hereby authorized to carry out all functions necessary, including ordering evacuations to implement the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan and all other emergency measures necessary during the state of emergency. Done on this 8th day of October 2018, signed and approved by the Board of County Commissioners. I'd also like to mention this morning that last night I was sitting watching television with my wife, just relaxing after a long day, and phone rang, and picked up the phone, and reply was, "Hey Bob, this is Rick." I'm thinking, okay, who's Rick? It's our governor, and it was just that cordial. And we discussed, the state of emergency, and it was not pre-recorded. This was actually our governor taking the time to contact, I believe, probably each chairman throughout the panhandle area that could be affected, letting them know that he was there for us. So I'd like to say that message from Florida Governor Rick Scott that I received in person last evening, that as this storm approaches, he reminds all citizens not to delay in making preparations or plans for evacuation, reminding each of us that the first 72 hours after an event, we are to be ready to manage for ourselves. Governor Scott assured me that if necessary, the full resources of his office and state EOC would be at our disposal, adding that he would be praying for the safety of each of the citizens of our area of the state and our guests. And again, this call was not a recording, so I believe we have some more to add to that from our County EOC Director, Brad Baker.
Good morning, and thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to run through the National Weather Service brief they gave us this morning. I told Mr. Shabler that this is the first time for me. It's never failed when we had a board meeting. So we had to modify our state of emergency to include the board in this, where we normally follow our progressive line. So I'll give you the update and kind of our game plan going forward. So Right now, it is Tropical Storm Michael. I'm sure as the next wave of updates come out that it'll be Hurricane Michael, and they are predicting a Category 2 and even potential to go to Cat 3 before it reaches landfall. And there you can see the update from the National Hurricane Center. Right now, it is projected to go in east of us, and that's good news for multiple reasons. The surge is typically worse on the eastern side of the storm, and it looks like our surge inundation is only going to be about 1 to 2 feet if the track continues on. Of course, it is in a northward motion, and depending on when it enacts with that cold front that's moving through will determine when that northeast turn takes place. And of course, the sooner that can happen for us, the better. So you can see we are on a hurricane watch, and looks like the wind speed probabilities are in the 60% to 70% chance that we will see at least tropical storm force winds in our county. And the timing of that is really to be determined based on the forward motion of the storm. But you can see the earliest reasonable chance for us to get those are tomorrow evening, and there's the wind threat potential, like I said earlier. So there is a potential that we will see, 58 to 73 mile an hour winds in our county. And there's a surge model. We are looking at, depending on, once again, when it makes that northeast turn, anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain. And of course, if it continues north, we'll see more of the impact from the wind and more of the rain. Right now, it's a lot of the heavier rain is on the east side of the storm. So, hopefully for our citizens, at least, it'll continue on the forecast track and make that northeast turn. Just to kind of give you an update, it does take us about 12 hours to evacuate our surge areas. So, if we are going to make any evacuation decisions, they will have to come by this afternoon to enact first thing in the morning. So those are all things that we'll discuss after our 10:30 briefing this morning with the National Weather Service, and we'll hold our policy group meeting, and that'll include the sheriff, the superintendent of the schools, and obviously our staff and administration. So, more to come. We ask the citizens to be prepared, like the governor said, and the first 72 is on you, and we'll do all our social media posts, our press releases and all that today to keep everybody updated on our decisions. And I guess let me say this, because it always comes up, we do not know when we're going to shut the bridge down. It will have to be sustained winds. When law enforcement goes out there and determines there's sustained winds of 40 miles an hour or above, and that's always the first question is, when are the schools closing and when are you going to shut down the bridge? And those obviously will make the school decision later today, but each bridge is independent on its own, so I just can't forecast that.
And Brad, one other thing, how about the toll on Garcon Point Bridge? That up to the governor or up to us?
Both. If we go under a local evacuation, I can lift those tolls with one phone call, and obviously if the governor decides to do something across the panhandle, then he'll lift all the tolls. But we do have that is part of when we go under a local state of emergency, that is one of the authorities that is then given to me as the EM director.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
That's it for me.
All right, any questions from board members? Good job, Brad. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, may I mention something?
Absolutely.
On this? We have a very high-profile trial that's starting today with 4 defendants standing before one jury under Judge Simon. He's adamant about this trial continuing on. So if the storm does shift to the west and the county decides that they're going to shut down, somebody needs to be in touch with Judge Simon and explain the reason and the safeties, reason why we would need to close, because I'm not sure he's willing to close from what I was hearing this morning.
Well, Mr. Spencer, maybe you'll get an opportunity to try that new generator. Okay.
I will stay in communication with Brooke, and if I need to reach out, I'll make contact.
All right, thank you. All right. Anything else? No? All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the regular meeting now. These items are for information only. A public hearing scheduled for Thursday, October 11th, 2018 at 9:30. We'll change that to Wednesday. Thank you, Commissioner Salter. Wednesday, because the board will be meeting this week on Wednesday instead of Thursday, same time in this location.
Sir, if I could, just with the local state of emergency, I would suggest maybe the board consider action on those things we can take action on today. And then in case we need to cancel or in case we need to close Wednesday, the only thing that we wouldn't be able to complete is that public hearing as at the board's discretion. And I had 2 information-only items to add to the agenda. A number 3 in Public Works, just a quick update on the Ashley Plantation situation that was discussed last meeting. And then a number 3 under Public Services, an update on the veterinarian services. We had an RFP out. We got no responses. I'll just provide a quick update to the board. There's no action required, but just wanted to add those for your awareness.
All right, any opinion from the board? We will go ahead and move these items in case Wednesday's meeting has to be canceled. We'll get all that on record and have that information available through Public Affairs Office and keep abreast of that. So again, these are for Wednesday, and this is repealing Chapter 19, Special Districts, Shores of Santa Rosa Community Development District, and also at Swenson Park FRDAP application. That's today? All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and move the Swenson Park FRDAP application solicitation of public comment regarding this. This time I'll ask if there's any comments from the Board of County Commissioners or staff.
So we'll have that as a public hearing at 9:30.
9:30, okay.
We can go through the rest of the agenda. We'll come back to that as the public hearing at 9:30 on Swenson
All
Park.
right. Y'all keep me straight.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to ask, so Wednesday, the only thing on the agenda would be the public hearing in reference to the special districts.
Yes.
Would it hurt to push that back or to coincide with another meeting, or?
If necessary, we could do that. This is a special district that's been dormant for a number of years. The Secretary of State office asked that we repeal the ordinance that established it. It's not something that's time crucial.
So, I mean, would it be okay with the board if we
We'd
do
have to
that?
re-advertise.
To have it in
Let's see what
conjunction
happens. Let's
with,
see what
okay.
We'll just see what happens if necessary.
And, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner.
just a point of clarification, the agenda says for the public hearing scheduled Thursday, October 11th.
Already changed that.
Did the notice go out, say Wednesday, or did it say?
It said Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Typo on
Good
the
question.
agenda.
Thank you. All right. Thanks for correcting me on that, Commissioner Salter. We'll go ahead into the administration committee. Dan, you said you wanted to take item number 1, information only?
Yes, sir. This is just an information-only item. The City of Gulf Breeze, in accordance with the interlocal agreement, submits to the Clerk of Courts their budget resolution and planned expenditures for tourism development tax that is provided to the City of Gulf Breeze. So this is just an information item. I know there have been some questions in the past, but this lays out what those items are that tourism development tax will be expended for within the City of Gulf Breeze.
Okay.
No action required from the board.
All right. Any questions from board members? If you do, then look through that information and take it to the county administrator. So no actions required. Item 2, event request, discussion of the following event request. Item number 1 is Lead Academy's request to utilize Santa Rosa Horse Park for their annual harvest celebration and rodeo. Scheduled for November 16th, 17th from 7 to 10. Item 2 is Azalea Garden Club of Pace, request to utilize Pace Community Center for their annual Elegant Spring Tea, scheduled for March 3rd and 4th, 2019. The club has also requested a waiver of the $485 rental fee. And the third item is the Azalea Club of Pace's request to utilize Pavilion A at Benny Russell Park for their Kids' Day in the park, scheduled for June 8th, 2019. The club also requests a waiver of the $35 rental fee. Is there any concerns with the Board of Commissioners on these requests? If not, this is in majority of these are in Commissioner Parker's office. Commissioner Parker, any concerns?
No, Margie, I appreciate all y'all do for the community. You're absolutely, the floor is yours if you'd like to speak, but I think sounds like you got the support of the board today.
Well, that sounds really good. But Chairman and Commissioners and the rest of the board members, I come with 3 items on my list. First of 2 are those 2. But I wanted to start with, my name is Margie Baldwin, and 5326 Morgan Ridge, Milton, Florida. I wear many hats in Santa Rosa County for a lot of different nonprofit groups, even in Escambia County as well. So the first order was that as a board member for the Japan American Society of Northwest Florida, I want to say thank you from the board of directors to you guys for proclamating the October 6th as our jump day. And it was received very well by the Ambassador Zumwalt from the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, as well as the Consul General Kenji Hirata. And they both, on Saturday, were given the proclamation, and they were very pleased, and we had over 300-400 people in attendance. So it was a very nice presentation, and they wanted me to convey to you, thank you very much. Okay, so that was the first item. Second item is the Azalea Garden Club's Spring Tea. Thank you for your support again, but I wanted to give you a report so that you know that your support is well spent. I did say that in my request that we did have 5 children's programs and 9 educational to adults throughout the county in every one of your districts, and 1 field trip, which was an educational field trip, and started 1 community beautification project. You may know the site. It used to be your, before the Pace Community Center was built, you used to have an election site on Kaiser Lane, which is now the Homemaker, Pea Ridge and Pace Homemakers facility. And we visited the site and noted that it could use some landscaping help. So the Azalea Garden Club approached the group and suggested some landscaping ideas, and in trade, they offered the facility use for some of our educational programs. So what we're trying to do is bring the community together, not just as a garden club, but also to make an impact for other community service type projects. Okay, and I'll speak on that a little bit later regarding on the Kids' Day in the Park. So sounds like I have a support already, so I won't elaborate too much more, but I have given each of you a copy. It's about a few pages selected out of our yearbook, and our yearbook was so thorough, and like I said, this is only a few pages because there's a tremendous amount of private information for all of our membership in the rest of the yearbook. So I only selected the pages that were, represented description of the club and what we do, but on the last couple pages are the calendar that we created for last year. And we have a similar one for this year with all new topics again. The only addition to that listing is the Kids' Day in the Park that we added after we produced those yearbooks. But because of our activities so much into the community, I want you to know and take a little bit of claim that we won the #1 first place for the state of Florida for our yearbook and activities. And we also won 3rd place in the southern region of many states. So we did very well, and I just wanted to convey that information to you because you all supported us. We were able to do those types of things. Now, the third item would be on the Kids' Day in the Park. When we made the request, last year and this year, the process was a little bit different in the county's requirement for insurance. Last year, we had our typical $1 million, $3 million we have 3 times the amount that the county requires for our Azalea Garden Club because we're part of the National Garden Clubs. However, this year we noticed that there was another requirement on, because it was a children's program, that it had to, we had to get some sort of a sexual abuse insurance. We did some research, we asked our writer, and they do not provide that. So we called back the county and they said, we'll call the events insurance people. So we did. They told us to give us that coverage. It is $895. And also that we would not be allowed to bring in any wildlife. And we do training, educational programs where we bring in wildlife experts from Florida Fish and Game, and they, show and tell type things, because this is a children's program. So because of those costs, we are not going to do Kids Day at the park on a county property. What we have decided to do is move that educational program over to the facility over on Kaiser Lane, and we will start developing an educational gardens and start training the children there. But this year we'll probably focus more on wildlife, and then it'll give us time to build the gardens that's going to be necessary for education for future use. So I'm going to respectfully withdraw our request to fund the $35 for the Kids Day in the park, because it's become cost prohibitive for us to use the park for that purpose. Okay? And the third item and last item is, last year I stood here and I asked all of you a request regarding the fee waiver for the Azalea Garden Club. And then the second issue was regarding possible discounting of the facility fees for other nonprofit groups. And pretty much it was indicated that day that, yeah, you didn't see too much problems, and even the support staff had said that the impact would be very low. So I left the meeting thinking that that too was going to be approved at your voting meeting the following Thursday, which I did not attend. I do not know what happened at that meeting, but we still don't have any kind of discounting for any nonprofit groups for facility rentals. So I come here asking you for your status. And then also, is there a problem in giving that? And if so, what do we do about it?
Margie, what I'd say, since it's been a year, let's staff, kind of reboot that, see where we're at with it.
Okay.
We've made quite a few changes in cost.
Yes.
So let's let our staff
Okay.
go over that. I can't give you an answer right now and wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. So, but since you brought it back to our attention, I'm certain we can take a look at that, and they can contact you directly and bring some recommendations back to the board.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you. And there are many nonprofits that impact each and every district throughout Santa Rosa County. I said I wear many hats. I deal with the artists. We deal with the cultural groups. There's a huge, I don't know, because it's probably more unaware, but there is a huge Japanese-American influence in Northwest Florida because of all the military bases. And we do quite a few different events, and we do hold them down south on Gulf Breeze as well as Navarre, and throughout Escambia and up here as well. So in Milton, we have started a cultural day on Thursdays at the Event Center, and it's being received very well by homeschoolers and other people of interest, in the culture. So we're starting to get more and more of those programs developed. On Mondays, we do have our open studio for artists, which the Event Center was open for free for the artists to use it as a studio. Okay. So we have artists coming in and working over it in District 2. So I want to say that I represent all of your districts, and through that, the nonprofits would really appreciate any kind of a discounting or break that they could get for expanding their services to the different areas. Okay? Right. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And bringing reports to this board like you did makes it easier for us to justify those discounts and
yes.
And the, connectivity with the other events and other organizations in the county. And that's what it's all about, getting everybody put
Yes.
together. So thank you for your time this morning. I appreciate you coming
Thank
out.
you. So could I go back and report that, yes, we did get your support, and the fees will be waived for the spring tea?
I'm going to put that to, since we're going to go ahead and finish today, instead of moving to Wednesday or Thursday, is there any board member in opposition to the waiver on item number 2, or any comments from staff on the waiver? Seeing none, I'm going to move item number 2 without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 1 with the lead academy, any objections? Hearing none, so passed without objection. So item number 1 and 2 on the event request are passed without objection. Item 3 has been withdrawn.
Thank you very much.
All right. Item 3, Settlers Colony Drainage Expansion Time Extension Modification. Dan?
So this is the time extension we briefed you on last time. This allows the construction award to go forward. We will issue the notice to proceed, and that construction will start later this month.
Any comments or questions from board members? Action we need to take, Dan, on this is just move it without objection?
Yes, sir. To approve that, accept the grant modification that was approved by FEMA. And I want to give credit to Sheila and her staff who got this extension through FEMA in record time.
Great work. Thank you very much, Sheila. All right, seeing none, so moved. Item 4, surplus property items. This is pretty much just a boilerplate declaration of items from Santa Rosa County Health Department as recommended by Clerk of Courts. Any objections or comments? Hearing none, so moved. Item 5, oath of office. This is the board reorganization meeting. Oath of office and reorganization meeting for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2018, November 20th, 2018, excuse me, beginning at 9 a.m. in accordance with Ordinance 97-44. Comments? Seeing none, so passed. Item 6, committee and regular board meeting cancellations. This is a cancellation of the November 19th and the December 24th, 2018 committee meetings and the November 22nd and December 28th regular meetings due to observance of Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. Oh, okay. December 27th then. Thank you, Blaine. All right, any other comments or questions, corrections? If not, so moved. Item 7, Local Mitigation Strategy, LMS Annual Update. This is a presentation on the LMS. Sheila, are you doing this? Please.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on the efforts of our local mitigation strategy over the last year. I think I see one of our LMS members in the audience, Eric from the town of Jay, and we do appreciate all of our steering committee members. Commissioner Parker also participates in that. So I'm just going to run through the presentation pretty quickly. This is not new to any of you, but it may be of interest to our audience. Is the presentation ready? So our local mitigation strategy is in part because the state of Florida requires every county to have a strategy for working on hazard mitigation, and we do call that our local mitigation strategy. And we do have this in place partly because it's a requirement in order to get our federal funding for hazard mitigation grants and other flood mitigation grants. Third slide. The way that the local mitigation strategy operates in our county is we have a task force. Primary purpose is to work together to develop and update a mitigation plan which identifies the hazard risks, identifies priorities to minimize those risks, as well as identify and rank mitigation projects. While the group does work to identify funding and to complete projects, this local mitigation strategy does not have funding, which is a misconception. It's from time to time. However, the group does work together to identify funding and get projects aligned with funding. It is cross-jurisdictional, and we do encourage the participation of the public, community, residents, nonprofits, and our next meeting is coming up on October 25th. Those meetings are generally held quarterly, and they are advertised on the county's website. So a little bit about our plan. It's a 5-year plan. We last received approval in 2016, and that plan is good through 2021. We will actually begin the update at the end of next year, 2019. It is about a 12 to 18-month update, and that is a comprehensive plan update. We do update the state at the end of January each year on the progress of our plan and projects. And of note, we've mentioned a few times, our project listing is currently undergoing a comprehensive review where we are taking a close look at each project, and we are evaluating it based on new criteria, which is called the Stapley methodology, and we hope to be able to have a current and re-ranked list for the commissioners in 2019. So some of the activities that we completed in 18, fiscal year 18, so we start with one of our main partners, which is Rebuild Northwest Florida. They work to do hurricane hardening projects for our residents, and as of September, they had completed over 3,000 homes in Santa Rosa County, and they do have many more on the waiting list that are waiting for additional grant funding. We also were able to substantially complete our Pace and Patterson Lane drainage project. We have started 2 others, Chipper Lane, Maranatha Drive, and Pace, as well as the Venetian Way and Coronado Drive drainage project in Villa Venice. And the design and permitting is complete for Settlers Colony, and as Mr. Shebler mentioned, the construction will actually start later this month. Public Works also undertook several smaller scale, or they may consider them larger scale, mitigation activities in this last year, and those are listed there for your review. Upcoming in this next fiscal year, we do expect to close out that Pace Lane and Patterson Lane drainage project. There is just a minimal change order that you'll be hearing about at the next meeting to do a little bit more improvements for the road flooding that was identified after Tropical Storm Gordon. Our Venetian Way and Coronado Drive drainage project will wrap up at the end of fiscal year 19, as well as the Chipper Lane and Maranatha. And our Ranchettes drainage project, we will more than likely be bringing you a detailed update, if not the second meeting in October, in November, to talk about that project. We've just ran into substantial issues with our land acquisition, and we are working with the permitting agencies to try to evaluate one more alternative for that project, and we will be able to give you an update on that soon. And our Settlers Colony expansion project will be substantially complete around October, November of next year. We will finish one more of our elevation projects in this upcoming year. Next slide, we've got the status of several of our Holly by the Sea projects listed. You can see there that Camden Drive construction is going to begin this month. The design phase for Camden Drive Phase 2 will also wrap up, and hopefully we can align some funding to implement that second phase of Camden Drive. You're familiar, I believe, with the other projects listed here, Sunrise Drive, both sections, East Bay Boulevard. So we'll continue to try to align the projects identified in the Holly by the Sea Master Plan with funding sources. And next slide would be projects that have been approved for funding and will commence in this upcoming year. The Tiburon subdivision, following design, construction would be anticipated for next year. And then Metron Estates, we are approximately 60 to 80% complete on design of that. We did get in a grant application for hazard mitigation grant funding under the IRMA allocation, and it could take quite some time to work through the application review process because the state did have over 700 grant applications, but that is the largest allocation of HMGP funding that the state has ever received, so we are hopeful that our project will be funded so that we can get construction started next year. Public Works continues to incorporate various mitigation efforts into their work, and you can see those listed there. A couple of notes about our community rating system. We are continuing to maintain our Class 5, and we have also reached several of our goals you can see those listed there. Our Flood Mitigation Plan Task Force recently met to update the plan for public information and to undertake a review of our flood mitigation plan. And those documents were posted to our local mitigation strategy page. Some more goals following on the next page. Our floodplain manager, Karen, does a great job of making sure that we continue to work on our flood mitigation. We also participated in Flood Safety Week and will continue to do so and work to do outreach for flood safety. Won't go into too much detail about our repetitive loss properties other than we will continue to work with the property owners who are interested in flood mitigation grants to try to get them elevated. And our cycle is upcoming with applications due in November, so we'll be bringing back an agenda item, probably the second meeting in October or November, related to applications. Flood mitigation plan is a part of our local mitigation strategy, but it is a standalone plan, and you can see there that we basically update it in conjunction with the local mitigation strategy. The review of the flood mitigation plan was undertaken in September, and we did note that a majority of the items have been successfully addressed. We've also identified additional action items to work towards, and again, those are listed in the documents that are on the local mitigation strategies website. So in the future, our local mitigation strategy will continue to work towards aligning projects with funding sources. We want to get additional community participation in that. We'll continue to encourage our homeowners to retrofit their homes, to work with Rebuild. Sorry, thank you. And we'll continue, of course, to look for grant opportunities and help our residents. Is there any questions about the update this year?
Sheila, thank you very much. Outstanding work on this, between the discounts, the ratings, the jobs that are marked complete. You and your staff work diligently on these, and we can't, on behalf of the citizens in this board, I just want to thank you very much for that. So, any other comments?
Great job.
Thanks.
Great job. Thank you very much.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. All right, it's past 9:30, so we'll go back now to the public hearing. 9:30, Swenson Park FRDAP application. Solicitation of public comment regarding the proposed submission of an application for the Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program grant for improvements to Swenson Park located at 1076 Circle Lane, Gulf Breeze, Florida. Do we have anybody here who would like to speak on this on behalf of the public? If not, Sheila, please.
Just real quickly, I'll run through what our proposed application is, and then if there are any comments, we'll make note of them for the application. I also have a presentation slides on this one. You may remember earlier this year, we proposed 2 grant applications. That was under a special cycle for children's appropriation. So we have gotten those Benny Russell and Baghdad Recreation Park applications in. We've not yet heard how they rank, but we hope to be able to bring some good information to you about those. This upcoming cycle is due October 15th. We expect that they'll rank projects in the spring, and then funding will be available next summer. So as you know, FRDAP is a competitive program, and the projects must be for the sole purpose of providing outdoor recreational opportunities. The maximum grant request in the cycle is $200,000, and there is a matching requirement depending on the amount of funding that is requested. Slide 3. So more than half of the project requests must be for primary recreation facilities. The grant will fund what they consider to be support amenities, such as your restrooms, lighting, but it cannot dominate the cost of the project. I'm moving on now to slide 5. The park is located in Santa Rosa Shores at 1076 Circle Lane. The existing facilities that are there are the playground area, walking path, fitness equipment, pavilions, picnic tables, tennis court, basketball court, and benches. And you can see some representative site pictures in the 2 slides following those current improvements. We are proposing in this application to do substantial playground improvements, including installation of an ADA compliant surface. We'd like to add additional picnic area, renovate the tennis court and basketball court that's currently located in the park. There is some fitness equipment that needs to be replaced. We'd like to add some stencils in some of the sidewalk areas for like hopscotch, Foursquare, and we're also proposing some lighting and ADA accessibility upgrades. The project budget is $400,000, and the presentation outlines the cost of those proposed improvements. A majority would be going to the playground. That's $220,000. The total project estimate, $400,000, $200,000 would be coming from the grant, and the remainder would come from District 5 recreation funds as the local match. We have had 2 public input opportunities to date. One was held with the Santa Rosa Shores Homeowners Association on September 24th. We also presented this at the Parks Advisory Committee meeting on September 26th. And then today is a pre-advertised public meeting for the purpose of getting public comment on the proposed application. So if there are any public comments, we'll make note of them and then get this submitted before the October 15th deadline.
Anybody from the public like to speak on this? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comments. Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Sheila and Tammy and the Parks Department for working on this. The meeting, I was at the meeting that we had on site at Swenson Park, and it was well attended. There were a number of homeowners in the area. It's a well-used park. A lot of kids and adults that use the park. So these improvements will mean a lot to the residents down there. So appreciate the work and would move this without objection.
Hearing no objection, so passed.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner.
thank you. While we have Sheila here, Sheila, the Fidelis Park grant, similar, that was passed, Fidelis.
We submitted Fidelis under the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and it has been ranked high enough to receive funding, so we expect to get that grant agreement sometime after January. We are actually moving towards working with an engineering firm to go ahead and get the site work, design work, bid packages put together, so that when we do bring the grant agreement to the board, we'll be in a position to go out for construction bids shortly thereafter. So expect that project probably to commence construction in the summer of next year, or we'll work with the sports agency or sports organization to make sure we don't conflict with any sporting seasons.
Just want to make sure that I'm setting aside my $200,000 as well, so
I'm sure Jane's on top of it.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Salter. All right, next item on today's agenda is number 8, tax roll extension. Got a letter from Stan Nichols, Santa Rosa County Tax Collector, describing the request. This is a discussion of the extension of the tax roll prior to the completion of the Value Adjustment Board hearings pursuant to Florida Statute 197.323, as requested by the tax collector. Comments or questions from members of the board? Anything from the public? Seeing none, so moved. Item 9 is Justice Assistance Grant, Certificate of Participation. Discussion of approval of Certificate of Participation for the 2017-18 Florida Department of Law Enforcement Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. in the amount of $46,863 and designation of Marcia Arnold of the Sheriff's Office as the point of contact. Of note is that the grant normally would have been completed in 2017, but due to federal court litigation, the funds were not released till now. The certificate of participation approved at the November 6, 2017 BOCC meeting and signed by Commissioner Williamson was submitted to FDLE on November 21st, 2017, as provided in the backup documentation. At this time, is there any comments or questions? Seeing none, so moved. Item 10, County Extension 4-H Education Pavilion Design. This is a discussion of the proposed task order number 4 in the amount of $32,175 from Southern Site and Utility Design for the design of the 4-H educational facility and authorized to execute the contract documentations and documents. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, so moved. Item 11, Triumph Grant Award for Whiting Aviation Park. Commissioner Salter, would you like to comment on this or read this one?
I would. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm on Shannon and Erica, please. First of all, I want to thank Shannon and Erica and the whole staff for all the hard work you've done on this, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Shannon just passed out some minor updates that we received on Friday from the Triumph staff, and those updates are on page 4. And you do have a red line version in front of you, so it should be pretty easy for you all to see. The updates are just related to the total project cost and more specifically the county match that has been invested in the project over the years. Most of that match relates to the dig funding and the base buffering activities that have been ongoing. Those activities in that match was not reflected in the previous contract version. Again, we just received these on Friday, so we apologize for getting those to you at such a late notice. However, we do need this contract to be approved this week if we would like this to be on the Triumph agenda for the 23rd of this month. Triumph has a statutory requirement. They have to post their intent to award on their website for, I believe, 14 days prior to award. So Shannon and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Salter?
Mr. Chairman, at this time I would move approval of the grant award agreement with Triumph Gulf Coast Incorporated in the amount of $8,523,655 for infrastructure improvements to 4 acres of the Whiting Aviation Park, and I would, with the changes that Erica said. And I'd also like to go ahead and approve the contract as well today, without objection.
Seeing none, so moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Y'all
for your
did a
hard
great
work.
job. Thank you.
All right. Modification, item number 12 is modification of sub-grant agreements for flood mitigation assistance elevation grants. This is a flood mitigation assistance. Grant contract numbers are there on specified for you in the record to extend the period of performance for October 30th, 2018 to March 31st, 2019. Any comments or questions on this modification? Seeing none, so moved. Item 13, TN Incorporated Partial Assignment of Lease and Estoppel Certificate. And I'm going to have to ask Mr. Andrews to explain that to me, Lucy.
The Holly TTN, which is a sister corporation to Holly Corp, has a sale pending on the hotel on the beach. This is the approval of the assignment of their lease with the county, which is contemplated in the lease. But it does require county approval.
Okay. So no changes to any of the specified?
No changes to the terms of the lease, no, sir.
All right.
And the estoppel letter just says that they're paid to date on their lease fees, which they are, and the taxes, which they are, and that they've built a hotel on the beach, which they have, so.
Okay, good enough. Comments, questions from members of the board? Seeing none, so moved. Item 14, property purchases and sale of restrictive easements. This is a discussion of approval to purchase 2 parcels of property adjacent to the Santa Rosa County Soccer Park and sale of restrictive easements of both. All that documentation and backup is in your agenda. Commissioner Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a major investment by Santa Rosa County. I want to thank Roy and Mary Beth and Wanda and everybody else that's worked on it. And I'm going to ask Roy to describe each one of these parcels and what the future use may be. Roy, if you will.
There's, the Griswold parcel is 49 plus acres that is now a cotton field, I think, and it's going to be utilized to expand the existing soccer park to provide for expansion of our football program in that area. The Kennedy property is a house that's going to, and 9.7 acres, I think. That's going to be utilized also for expansion of the park facility. The house is going to be utilized at least temporarily for restrooms and for kind of an office clubhouse for the football program. So, and this project has been ongoing, or this is immediately adjacent to Pace Outlying Field. A portion of the property is actually in the accident potential zone. It's rated very highly in our land use for a acquisition to prohibit encroachment on the Whiting Field facilities. It is essentially a double benefit for the county, providing the encroachment protection, plus providing recreational usage and utilizing the Navy funds for 75% of the value of the restrictive easements and the DIG and REPI fund for the other property. So it's with no general revenue or rec funds from Santa Rosa County.
Thank you, Roy. Here again, this is approximately 60 acres of property, including a nice house that will be used for recreational support as well. When land in Santa Rosa County is becoming more and more scarce, especially the price, this is a big deal. We're gaining approximately $1.1 million worth of property, and we were able to use REPI funds and state grant money to recover approximately $800,000. So actually, we're getting 60 acres plus a house for about $300,000, which also will be paid for using REPI funds. So that's a big deal, and I want to thank Roy and staff for doing that. Thank you so much. Mr. Parker, we now can start thinking about a football field.
We need Sheila to get some more grants. I'm thinking our rec funds.
Okay, so judging by your comments, I would expect you want to move this without objection.
Move approval without objection.
Hearing none, so moved.
Just
Thank
a quick question on that, no objection, but there's no issues with the lighting of these future athletic fields?
No, we've gone over that in detail in the restrictive covenants, and there are some height restrictions, and the lighting is going to be focused downward, but there's no problem with the use for recreational purposes.
Thank you. Well done.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Salter. Appreciate that staff taking care of that for us. Item 15 is the memorandum of understanding with DEP for Navarre Beach Park Pavilion construction funding. This memorandum of understanding is for the construction of the amenities at the Gulfside Walkover Complex in Navarre Beach, Marine County Park. Any comments or questions on that? Commissioner Williamson, this is out in your neck of the woods.
No, Mr. Chairman, we covered this at the Gulf Breeze, or the Tiger Point meeting. We had that update. So the only question is just related to is this the one where we're first money in? Is that what it was saying on item number 4, where that just shout of $500,000, we're paying for the first portion of that, And that was the only thing that concerned me, was that it says in there that basically if the legislature decides to adjust funding, that we would start this project and then DEP would say, well, we're not funded for the rest now. Do we have any protections that if we take care of that first almost $500,000, that they'll take care of the balance of, I think, around 1.4?
I don't know what, the legislature would have to take some action to take money away. The project right now is fully funded with our commitment of the 493 and the state DEP commitment with the NERDA of funding. So I don't know that we have any protections if the legislature took money away from the project, but they would have to take a proactive step to do so.
Okay. That's pretty typical of the counties to do to pay that first bit, and then the state kicks in from there.
I think it was just the easiest way to structure the MOU, to do that first and pay, rather than try and separate and pay partial invoices, half with state money and half with our money for some period of time. We just agreed to pay the front part.
In the future, I'd prefer them to have their money spent first and then ours. Thank you.
All right, good question. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, so moved. Item 16, Bernath Place Subdivision Improvements, MSBU Ordinance Amendment. This is a discussion of approval of advertising a public hearing and ordinance amending ordinance 2008-23, which established the Bernath Place Subdivision MSBU. We've heard a lot of comments recently about Bernath Place, and seems like there's some new folks at the helm out there as far as the homeowners association and everything. So any comments, questions other than that? If not, then I'll move that item without objection. So moved. Item 17 is discussion of District 1 medical examiner contract agreement. Dan, take it away.
Yes, sir. I just included in the backup the latest response from the medical examiner's attorney to the county offer. There are negotiations continue, but Dr. Minyard has agreed to stay on as the District 1 medical examiner for a period of up to 60 days to either finalize these contract negotiations or the district or the state medical examiner commission meets in November. That could potentially appoint a new District 1 medical examiner, and then we would go through this contract negotiation with the newly appointed medical examiner. I don't know how that's going to come out. I just put it on here for your awareness that we do have a District 1 medical examiner. She has agreed through her attorney to continue to operate the office under previous contractual terms, so we're paying at the same rates as last year. She has rejected the offer of 100% and 450,000, 100% operational expenses and 450,000, and we don't know, we don't have a new contract, I guess, but we are continuing negotiations, and the counties continue to negotiate as one, as a block of 4 counties. We're not negotiating independently.
Okay. Dan, thank you for that update. Any questions from the board? Any questions? Seeing none, this is not an action item, so we just for information only. So Dan will keep us posted. Under economic development, we already took care of that item. That was the awards that we spoke about it a little earlier. So Roger, if you kind of quickly go through our engineer's report for us, please, sir.
Certainly. Our first item is we're recommending approval of the construction plans for Sunset Pines, a 30-lot subdivision located in District 5.
Comments or questions from board? Seeing none, so moved. Item 2.
Item 2, we're recommending approval of preliminary plat for Cassandra Estates, a 20-lot subdivision located in District 5 with a low-pressure sewer system.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, so moved.
Item number 3 is we recommend approval of the construction plans for the aforementioned Cassandra Estates.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, so moved.
Item number 4, we recommend approval of construction plans for Grand Chenier, a 16-lot subdivision located in Working District 5.
Again, any comments, questions? So moved.
Item number 5, we recommend approval of releasing a Caterpillar D6K2 dressing dozer for use at Central Landfill for an additional 4-year term with a maximum running hours of 1,500 hours per year in the amount of $33,4950 per month, and authorize the chairman to sign all relevant documents.
Seeing no comments or questions, no lights, so move.
Item number 6, we recommend approval of accepting a Bearwise grant in the amount of up to $58,000 from Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission to modify approximately 97 commercial dumpsters in our Bearwise safety area of Santa Rosa County, which is generally that area of the county lying south and west of Eglin Air Force Base.
All right. Seeing no comments, no lights coming on, so moved.
Item number 7 is we recommend accepting a waste tire grant from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection in the amount of up to $25,000 to fund 3 waste tire collection events at the county's central landfill on Saturday, December 1st, December 8th, and December 15th of 2018.
Roger, how many tires per person?
I don't have that exact detail, but I'll have that for you.
Okay, we'll make sure that's on the county website for anybody that's interested.
We'll certainly have that with our PIO officer when we announce it.
Thank you. Seeing no lights coming on, so moved. Item 8.
Item number 8 is a discussion of the engineering, we'll recommend the engineering scope modification from Genesis for the Navarre Park Bayside design in the amount of $16,500.
All right. Comments, questions? Seeing none, so moved.
And that concludes the engineer's report.
Thank you. Commissioner Williamson, Public Service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 items. Item number 1, the 2018 home interlocal agreement approval and submittal between us and Escambia County. Santa Rosa getting roughly $233,000 of the $1.2 million, and you have the breakdown there. If there's no questions or concerns or comments from staff, then I would move approval of the item without objection. Item number 2, annual agreement with Homeland Security Grant Program, and the information is provided in the backup. There was no questions or concerns or comments from staff. I'd move approval without objection.
So moved.
That concludes the report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Salter, Public Works.
Mr. Chair.
If I could just
Dan.
quickly on public services, we talked last week, our last meeting, about veterinarian services being part of the improvements. We had an RFP out on the street. That RFP closed, and we did not receive any bids or submittals last Thursday. So I've given Brad, the Public Safety Director, and Dale and Animal Services permission to go ahead and just start negotiating with individual veterinarians to try and get an hourly rate if we could, and then bring that back to the board, as we had no submittals in the RFP.
All right. Thank you for that information. No action taken on that. Thank you. Public Works, Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Chairman, I have 3 items, with number 3 being the add-on by County Administrator. First is discussion of request from UniFirst Corporation for a 1-year extension to the current uniform contract at current pricing. Any discussion? Hearing none, I would move approval without objection.
So moved.
Number 2, discussion of request from Gulf Coast Traffic Engineers for a 1-year extension to the current striping contract at current pricing. Any discussion by the board? Hearing none, move approval without objection. Any comments, Stephen? Thank you.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, number 3 was Ashley Plantation. I'll turn it over to our county administrator.
And I'll go to Mr. Furman, and Mark have been working on this update.
You can go to the next slide. The county, as y'all were made aware at the last meeting with citizens at Ashley Plantation, they are having some erosion problems where water is jumping a curb on Alderbrook Drive, flowing across an HOA property, and then having a negative impact on the county's downstream retention pond and also adjoining lots to that retention pond. And what we had initiated a couple of months ago was hiring a contractor to come in and modify some street inlets to take on more water. What you see there is what we call a modified type A inlet. Instead of having just the opening on the front, we got it on 3 sides. This is in the bottom of a curve, so water comes at it from all directions. We're hopeful that this inlet being modified and the one across the street also will keep more water underground so that it doesn't jump the curb. and then it'll flow into the pond in a more controlled manner. And so this work has been essentially complete. You can see in the picture there's a little bit of sodding that still needs to be done, and so we're moving forward there. Next slide, please. This is looking north from Tulip Hill up through that mentioned HOA property that drainage flows underneath in a pipe, and you can see it's been continually eroded where water has been jumping the curve and flowing down. And actually, I misspoke. This is looking south toward the retention pond. And this area, the HOA has committed, as they said in the last meeting, to come in and do some sculpting and beautification on it once we get our drainage a little better under control. So it is a cooperative effort with the HOA participating. Next slide, please. This is looking into the retention pond from the top of the hill where we are backed up to the property that had eroded. We've had full force in there the end of, or most of last week. We finished up most of the sculpting. We're in the sodding process today, and they're going to make sure they pin everything down good because of potential for impending rain coming up. So we've made a lot of progress. This is looking along the edge of the slope. The dirt area in the center of the picture is where we had a kind of a blowout going into the pond, and then that was what spread up into the neighbors' yards there to the right. Next. And that's a little bit, you can see where we took down our chain link fence for the pond and worked up into the yards of the Longs and the Huttos. We've gotten license agreements from them, and they've been extremely cooperative, very easy to work with, and very appreciative of what we've done. If you remember from the last meeting, there were some pictures of very large holes with the part of that privacy fence suspended over the hole and the satellite dish down in the hole. And so this is the repair work we had done as of this weekend, and it is, as I said, in the process of being sodded this morning. All right. And if you have any questions, be happy to address them. We'll get the fence put back up, and we're also doing some work in the pond that we can do since we have the equipment mobilized there.
Stephen, beautiful work. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, and so are theirs, and I think the difference we see today is outstanding. To everybody out there, great work. Commissioners Salter.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to thank Stephen and his employees for doing a great job in a quick, timely manner. I assume there's still more work to be done out there?
Yes, sir. There's more work that we're going to be continuing to do, working on some ditches, trying to, and of course engineering, as y'all directed at the last meeting, they're evaluating other improvements that we can do. The two property owners have indicated they'll grant us easements down their property line where this water wants to go. When we have an event that exceeds the capacity of our ditches and our pipes, this water wants to traverse through this area. So we're going to look at the other additional options, such as putting a pipe through that area with them granting us easements, but we'll be coming back to the board with that perhaps in the future.
Thank you, Stephen. Commissioner Parker, your phone should calm down a little bit.
Yeah, and I just want to echo what everybody said. Of course, I think Stephen and Roger and these guys know from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate the efforts they put in. I look forward to, and this may be something that I need to formally put in front of the board to see if there's an appetite to direct Roger's staff. I just look forward to efforts that, we could evaluate these things at maybe a little bit higher level on the engineering side, because it is sad now that, we've got Stephen's crew out there doing that work from, unfortunately, some things that I think we could argue we probably should never have got into. And, but I appreciate what you're doing, and I look forward to hopefully us having some requirements that would prevent this in the future, because now the taxpayers are doing the heavy lift, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman, no action on this. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Commissioner Lynchard, budget, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is discussion of bids received for the Miracle League Field Project at Tiger Point and recommend approval of award to Emerald Coast Constructors as the lowest qualified bidders. So we had the bid opening. There were 2 bids. Emerald Coast Constructors was the low bid meeting specifications. So I would move approval of acceptance of that bid without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And look forward to groundbreaking at our next meeting down in Tiger Point in November.
Absolutely. Great job.
Item number 2 is discussion of Budget Amendment 2019-001 in the amount of $5,123 to transfer funds from District 4 Recreation Fund to the General Fund for additional fencing at the Navarre Soccer Complex to include pump station, add privacy slats, and place a rolling gate at the entrance to the park and remove the current fence. I will move approval of that without objection.
Hearing none, passes.
Item 3 is Budget Amendment 2018-002 in the amount of $7,900 to recognize the FWC Derelict Vessel Removal Grant Award in the amount of $5,925 and matching funds in the amount of $1,975 from voter registration fee reserves to remove derelict vessel at an estimated cost of $7,900 as approved at the September 27th, 2018 meeting. I will move approval of that without objection.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 4 through 10 are carry forwards and rollovers. And unless there are any questions on specific items, I would move those without objection.
Seeing none, so passed.
Item 11 is the check register, and I will move approval of the check register without objection.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick note while I have the mic. I guess we'll go to public forum right now. Just a word of thanks to Midway Fire Department. At my business down in Gulf Breeze last Thursday, there was a vehicle that caught on fire close to a building. Midway Fire responded in minutes, managed to put out the fire within 20 minutes and prevent what could have been a disastrous situation. So appreciate all the work of our first responders throughout the county, and I got to experience the professionalism of Midway Fire last week. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
SBUs will be mailed in next month.
Yeah, get it in just in time.
Thank you for that. It always helps one of the commissioners to get some firsthand experience out there. It makes you a true believer. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
just before we leave Budget and Financial Committee, I just had a suggestion. I look at the online portal instead of the printed version, and something I noticed that I love the new website that we have, but there's no brief description of the agenda items for the budget items like there is for everything else on the agenda. It'll just maybe say bid item or budget item, and just a suggestion to maybe, in the interest of being more open and transparent, just having a brief 4 or 5 word description of what each item is in case somebody's looking for that item in the agenda or they want to look at it.
We'll do that in the interim. What we're doing is building out the portlets on the budget section, just like we have on the regular agenda item section, so that the system will create the budget amendment itself. We haven't completed that work yet. I'm pushing to go faster with the implementation of the new website than IT would like, but so in the interim, we'll take that step and put that description in the portlet that's there now until we get the full build out complete.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, okay. Roger.
in answer to your question on item number 7, the waste tire amnesty, it's
Yeah.
8 tires per residence. Businesses and commercial shops are not eligible for this amnesty.
Okay, thank you. And before we go away from the agenda, I have in my hand a license agreement for both the Huttos and the Longs, and I've signed those, so I wanted those to be in the record for today. And
move
at this
approval.
time, Commissioner, or?
Right.
Oh, move approval of the license agreement without objection on both items. Hearing none, so passed. This time I'll open it to public hearing, and Dan, do you need to get out to EOC?
I'm going to head to the EOC, sir, and we'll see you at the policy committee group meeting when you get there.
Soon, yes, sir. All right. This time I'll open it to the floor for public input. Does anybody have anything they'd like to discuss with their Board of County Commissioners this morning? Going once, going twice. We're adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, clarification, we do not have a meeting on Wednesday?
We,
I think that it's, we haven't completely canceled it yet.
Okay.
We would only have the one thing, and we're already adjourned, so I'll get with the county administrator and let everybody know.
You're in charge.
Yeah.